etc., etc. What's up, JP? And thank you for watching the comedy special. Really appreciate that. Any questions about politics, just go ahead and throw them in the chat. What's up, Muzz King? Great to see you again. Yeah, everybody's welcome here, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I don't judge, I don't fight, I don't roast, I don't debate, I don't harass, and I do not bully. That is not what this show is for. If you're looking for a show where a Republican and a Democrat yell at each other and call each other names, this is not that show. This is the show where if you're a Republican and you got a question that's clearly coming from a Republican MAGA place, then you can go ahead and ask that here. There's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. And there's always been a question that you wanted to ask, but you were worried that it would make you seem like a centrist or a libtard or whatever. You can ask those questions here, and no one's going to yell at you or scream at you or call you a fascist. Full Sky says, thoughts on Epstein release? Ooh, phrasing, Full Sky. B says, what is distributism? I mean, I don't know specifically. If it's what it sounds like redistributing the wealth. So yeah, I think that I'm shocked by how unstoppable the Epstein files have been, where, the Republican Party holds all three, branches of government. Trump has installed loyalists at the DOJ and at the FBI, and yet they still could not help but release damning information about people like Donald Trump. Now, there is information that we have not seen yet. Ro Khanna is asking for reasons why the full files have not been released. And so, I am not the kind of guy who really wants to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. So I'm just kind of like waiting for reporters to do that for me. And then I can go look and see what they found. But yeah, it's just more extremely concerning reports about shit that Donald Trump did and and Elon Musk did. And a bunch of rich fucking assholes and colluding with Russia and stuff like that. It's a whole fucking thing, man. And while, because none of this was proved in a court of law, like a lot of it is very much just, this looks weird and it doesn't look good, as opposed to being, definitive proof of PDFing or whatever. What's up, Brian? Great to see you again. I would love to continue our discussion from the last time. I don't remember where we left it off, but I'm down. Oh, I think the last thing I asked you was if you think it's easy to get out of poverty, and if you think you can work your way out of poverty. Let me know what you think about that. Florida Dave says, for real, it's nasty. That is for darn sure. Garbage Republican says, Trump crime family and their $80 million movie bribe. Yeah, that is a thing that happened, and that is not a question, but yeah. There are so many things. There are so many bribes that the Trump's family and Trump's administration have been involved in, or the recipients of. It's hard to keep track of them all. But yeah, that Melania documentary is stupid as hell. Ricky says, do you like the corner pieces of brownies or the middle pieces? I like the corner pieces. Voodoo Child says, have the Dems win enough seats? No. Mrs. T, I see your comment. Please don't spam. Democrats need to win more seats. More seats, more seats, more seats. It's like fucking Adam Driver in the second of the latest Star Wars movies, where he's going, more. Chrome says, Epstein was subscribed to Game Theory and was involved in Five Nights at Freddy's Lord Decoding. Is that real? I don't know if that's accurate. Mrs. T says, do you think it was okay that disabled kids weren't able to go to school during the pandemic? I think everybody wasn't allowed to go to school during the pandemic, Mrs. T, because there was a pandemic. Garbage Republican says, will you start calling them the Trump crime family from now on? I don't know. It seems a little referential to right-wing attacks on the Biden family. I don't have any problem with it. They are a crime family. Wizard Ozempic says, host is a felon. No, I am not. The president's a felon. Host is not. Voodoo Child says, we need to free their assets. Is it possible? Not currently, because any agency that would do that is currently in hands of Republicans or Trump loyalists. TK says, who wins the Maine Senate seats? Whoever gets the most votes. Mrs. T says, can actually answer any intellectual questions. Yes. Jane of My Existence says, not entirely true. What's not entirely true? Garbage Republican says, that's why it's funny. Oh, yes, I see. Mrs. T says, but it literally violated their civil rights. FAPE and idea? I don't know what that means. I don't think that it is a violation of people's civil rights to tell them they can't congregate in closed spaces during a once-in-a-century pandemic, Mrs. T. And also, ask your questions once, please. I'm getting tired of seeing them multiple times. Chrome says, is Ozempic that bad where it's okay to make fun of people on it? I mean, that's not really a question about politics. It seems to be like a drug that is really good at both getting people to lose weight but also curbing addiction. We don't really know long-term use cases for it, but Mrs. T says that's funny because attorneys disagree. Well, fine, I guess, Do I think it's a good idea that people didn't go to school during a once-in-a-century pandemic and people were dying in the thousands and there were mass graves and shit like that? Yeah, no, I think it was fine. And if you think it was illegal, then all right, go ahead and fight it, I suppose. Good thing it's not happening anymore. Garbage Republican says, do you think Jesus hated Zoom? I have no idea. Mrs. T says, so it was okay to violate disabled civil rights, but you argue for due process? It really seems like you're trying to fight Mrs. T. I'm not trying to fight you, okay? But yeah, I don't think it is a violation of disabled kids' civil rights to not be exposed to a deadly virus. Eric says, as an 18-year-old, what should I know and what's going to affect me in today's politics? That's a really good question, Eric. But I think that there's one main issue that you should keep in mind, which is that the Republican Party has gone completely fucking insane. And the Democratic Party has a really good track record. And so where specific issues and policies are concerned, that is obviously going to be that's going to be a moving target. It's going to depend on who is in charge. I guess the biggest question is, who do you trust? And if I were you, I would not trust the Republican Party, as not one tick. All right, Salvador Cortez says, what do you think about all the social media bot farms used to influence political stances? I'm against them, Salvador Cortez. And I would like people to recognize that most of these bots are doing the work of the Republican Party. They were either convincing you to vote for Republicans or to not vote at all. Like, that is the entire purpose of all of these bots. There is a ton more billionaire dark money behind these bot farms that are trying to get Republicans elected than trying to get Democrats elected. So, okay, Mrs. T. You know what, Mrs. T? You're out of here. I'm done with you. Sorry. You know what I don't like, Mrs. T? I don't like people who, when I don't answer their questions or I don't give them enough, they go, well, you can't have an intellectual answer to a difficult question. I know what it's like when somebody's trying to bait me into a fight, and now you're gone. Kat says, thank you, she's annoying. I agree. Formicus says, what is your political ideology? I'm a progressive Democrat. Salvador Cortez says, this is scary that these figures working behind the scenes have this much influence. It is scary, 100%. That's part of the reason why I do this, is so that I can make people aware of these issues and let them know that this is something that they need to be doing as well. All right. Eric already answered that question. Did you not hear my answer? Blue Steel says, opinion on rap music. It's great. Kim Z Her says, thoughts on the move towards pragmatism in the Middle East. I don't know what that means. I don't know. What are you saying, that the Trump administration is moving towards pragmatism in the Middle East? Because I don't know if that is accurate. Chrome says, I'd say both parties are insane. American politics, both sides are in the files en masse. Yeah, I don't know, Chrome. I don't know if anybody has done a full breakdown of party ideology of people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. That is not the only metric, though, by which we can judge political parties. We judge political parties by the things that their politicians do, by their platforms, by what they say they're going to do going forward, by what they've done in the past, and what they have fought against in the past, and what they say they're going to fight about in the future. And where those metrics are concerned, the Democratic Party is a lot better than the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is a lot worse than the Democratic Party. I'm happy to go into more details on that, Chrome. When people give me the both sides arguments, I really would like to dig in on that, because I find that to be spurious and inaccurate, and also encouraging people to not vote when, the Democratic Party, in order to save ourselves from what's currently going on, if you don't like it that ICE is just fucking murdering people, if you don't like that the president has a crypto coin, if you don't like it that there are only two political parties that we get to choose from, the Democratic Party is the way to solve all those problems. Joseph Settles says, I think voting is useless, honestly. Well, if it was useless, then the Republican Party wouldn't be working so hard to try to stop you from doing it. Joaquin Silva says, is Israel blackmailing Donald Trump about the Epstein stuff? I don't know, possibly. Salvador Cortez says, do you think Israel has too much control over politicians? I think that anybody with a lot of money has too much control over politicians. And Israel is just one lobbying organization that has a lot of money. Big Wog says, that's bullshit about the Democratic Party and Republicans. Would you like to give me some specifics, Big Dog, or are you just here to say no? Brian Smith says, there's no definitive current universal count of total Democrat bots versus Republican bots. Okay, Brian, but you know what, Brian? I'll give you that. I don't know where I am getting that information, except for the fact that I see so much more narratives that are bullshit to help the Republican Party than I see narratives to help the Democratic Party. Joseph Settle says, I think both parties are corrupt. I don't think they have America's best interests. Again, to everybody who is arguing the both sides thing in the comments, I think you are wrong. There is a lot of evidence that you are wrong. If you are willing to hear this evidence, I would love to give it to you. Rory Young says, what laws are ICE breaking? They're violating everybody's due process. They're violating everybody's human rights. They have ignored something like 90 judicial orders, which is more than any government agency. They've done it in 1 month. They've ignored more judicial orders than every other government agency in the history of their inception. Garbage Republican says, do you think those bot farms are just trying to start fights and necessarily pushing one side? I think that some of them are Garbage Republicans. And I think it's important to recognize that those fights help the Republican Party and they help the billionaire class. So that's more evidence that this is all coming to benefit one side of the political spectrum. Joseph Settle says, let's hear it. I'm willing to hear different perspectives. Excellent. All right, I'll get right to that. Rory Young says, what's due process? Due process is the government says you did a crime and you say, no, I didn't. And then there's a trial and lawyers are involved and a judge is there. That's due process. Instead, they are just saying, you're here illegally, and you're saying, no, I'm not. Here's my passport. Here's my birth certificate. And they're like, that's fake. And then they beat the shit out of you, or they detain you, or they murder you. And sometimes they let you go. They let you go, just like dehydrated and underfed, and you've missed your child being born and shit like that. Okay, let's see here. Brian Smith says that's not due process at all. Okay, Your Honor, why don't you go ahead and lose it is. Joseph Settle. Okay, so here is my long and short argument for the difference between the two political parties. Okay, all right. Number one, everything that you are seeing right now is the fault of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is in full control of both houses of Congress and the judiciary, and they are allowing a rampantly illegal, unconstitutional, barbaric, corrupt president to just go on as though this is business as usual. Where is Congress? Where is the Supreme Court with detention centers, with illegal detainment, with Trump's cryptocurrency, with the $400 million Qatari jet, with bribes that Trump is receiving in order to bail people out of jail, in order to, pardon people for their crimes? That's number one. Number two is the platforms of the parties are different. The platform for the Republican Party is a wish list for the billionaire class. The platform of the Democratic Party is for the people. It is for the 99%. It is the working class. Now, obviously, that doesn't always play out because of things like politics and corruption, but I would much rather have them at least say they're going to do the thing for the people than for the Republican Party say, we're here for the rich, and then people vote for them anyways. If you look at their history, economic crashes, national security incidents, all of those happen more under Republican administrations than Democratic administrations. And yet there is this idea that the Republican Party is more fiscally responsible than the Democratic Party is. If you think that money in politics is a problem, the platform of the Democratic Party and the way that they have governed is trying to get money out of politics. The platform of the Republican Party, the way that they have governed their Supreme Court cases, have all been trying to make corruption easier, bribery easier, more legal, harder to find, harder to catch, etc. I could go on. The Democratic Party is pro-union. The Republican Party is trying to squash unions. The Democratic Party brings down healthcare costs. The Republican Party increases healthcare costs. The Democratic Party is the party of civil rights. The Republican Party is trying to dismantle civil rights. Like, come on, guys. What's going on? What's going on? Kirk Burner says, are you liberal or a man? You might find this hard to believe, Kirk Burner, but I am both a man and a liberal. I know, man. John868 says, you're very extreme entertaining. Thank you very much. Ecuadorian, what's up? Good to see you again. Willie says, thoughts on the new Fed chair pick? He was in the Epstein files, wasn't he? That's pretty interesting, I think. Also, Donald Trump is not going to. Oh, first of all, Carmine, excellent block on the Enigma guy. Yeah, Trump is not going to pick anybody for Fed that has not already agreed to just do whatever he tells them to do, which is antithetical to what the Fed is. The Fed is supposed to be independent. Mark Duffy says the Democrats oppose the Civil Rights Act. What are you saying? Mark Duffy, the Democrats used to oppose the Civil Rights Act, but then the party switched. In fact, it was a Democratic president who signed the Civil Rights Act into law, so you can miss me with that non-historical nonsense. John Bradley says, wasn't the latest major immigration bill update from 1996 like 6 presidents ago? I'm not 100% sure if that's true, John Bradley, but what I do know is that the Democrats and the Republicans worked on a bipartisan immigration bill during the Biden administration, and Donald Trump told the Republicans to kill the bill that they wrote so that Donald Trump could run on immigration as an issue. I do not think that you have any credibility as a political party if you are willing to keep a problem or make a problem worse so that you can win elections. That's utter bullshit. You have lost all legitimacy on that issue. I no longer trust you to fucking catch dogs. Kirkburner says, you said you are a man and a liberal? Yeah, but more importantly, your mom knows. Nelson Brothers Painting says, there was an amnesty bill in 2007 and Bernie led the charge to kill it. I don't know anything about that, Nelson Brothers. I don't know what that's trying to prove. Mick says, why there have been few hints about the midterms not happening or a third term for Trump. So Trump does this thing where he puts a lot of different things out into ether to try to muddy the waters. He wants us all arguing about whether or not he's going to try to run for a third term or whether he's going to try to cancel the midterms or whatever. It is all part of this soup of creating more confusion and chaos and distrust. But what we know to be a fact is that Trump is going to try to steal the midterm elections and the 28 election. Whether or not he actually tries to stay in office or whether he tries to die in office, I personally think that he's going to try to stay. He's going to try to die in office, and that means staying longer than his third term potentially. But yeah, we have to be prepared for that. We have to do the work to try to stop him. NRC says Gish Gallop. Yeah, that is what he does. Nelson Brothers Painting says it's proven that the labor movement and organized labor does not support open borders or immigration. I don't know how. I don't think that anybody supports open borders, Nelson Brothers Painting. The idea that the border was open during the Biden administration is right-wing propaganda. And I do not believe that the labor movement or organized labor are against immigration in general. Immigration, it should be said, is a net positive on the country. We have population decline in every single state, meaning that we are not replacing our current generation. We are going to have a smaller America than we did before. And there are things that we need people for, like construction and farming and shit like that. And all of these people who desperately need things to get done are not being able to get them done now. Let's see here. RUC says we should abolish the United Nations. I disagree with that. NRC says, do you support ranked choice voting? Yes, I do. And the Democratic Party is the only party of the two that supports ranked choice voting. Nelson Brothers Painting says the Koch brothers supported open borders. Well, they were pieces of shit. So the Fixer Mike says perhaps he wants to run just to choose a different successor. Yeah, that is potential, the Fixer Mike. Let's see here. Boone says, speaking of stealing, how about Fulton County? Are you referring to the illegal search and seizure of ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, that the FBI just did? Briel Benda says, in the modern era, why do great people not become president? I think there's like a lot of, it's a difficult job that has a lot of pitfalls. Okay, let's see here. Mick says, how to avoid issues with the midterms since there's so much money behind for wrongdoings. So we as individuals need to work with other individuals in order to protect our right to vote, because the Trump administration and the Republican Party are hostile to it, and they've been hostile to it for a long time. So we need to be in touch with our state and local governments to see how are they planning to run the midterm elections and the 28 elections. What is your contingency plan for if the FBI tries to steal ballots before we can count them? What is your contingency plan for if ICE blocks roads to polling locations in Democratic areas? States can do stuff to help prevent the worst excesses of the Trump administration. We just have to make sure that they are doing it. especially if you live in a purple state. Like in blue places, like, you know, Massachusetts and New York and California, like I'm pretty confident that, you know, they know that this shit is going on and is a potential. But you could potentially have a Secretary of State who's a Republican who thinks that this is all just no big deal, Trump bluster. He's just, blowing hot air kind of shit. We need to make sure that everybody is taking this threat seriously. Garbage Republican says, do you think Texas is purple? I mean, almost every state is technically purple. It really just depends on the votes that you can consistently count on. And that is the reason why we refer to some states as red and blue. Part of the reason why Texas is a red state is because of how much gerrymandering and voter suppression happens in Texas. And so, yeah, even though the demographics of Texas are as purple as anywhere else, you can consistently consider Texas to be a red state because they consistently vote red. Oh, right. The Fixer Mike says the road blocking is definitely a possibility. Most rural cities are accessed by a single road. That is very unfortunate, Fixer Mike, but what can we do? What can we do to prepare for that? Saint Monkey says more blue voters than red in Texas. We have yet to see it, Saint Monkey. I know there have been some like people on social media who claim that there are more registered Democrats than Republicans in Texas. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but yeah, how much of Texas being red can we chalk up to voter suppression and gerrymandering? I couldn't tell you. Son the Baller says Trump is opposing that is supposing that Greenland is for national security against China and Russia. Do you agree? No, we do not need Greenland for national security against China and Russia. Trump is a liar. He is full of shit. Garbage Republican says, did you hear about the Texas State Senate seat that went Democrat? Yeah, Democrats are doing great in all these special elections that have been happening. And so we know that the Trump administration has not been able to capture all of our electoral systems. And that is great news. The bad news is that Trump also now knows that he has not captured all of our electoral systems. And so he is laser focused. Him and Stephen Miller are laser focused on making so that we do not get to choose who rules us, who rules over us going forward. Let's see here. Boone says, have you seen the gerrymandering map in Illinois? Wow. I have not seen the gerrymandering map in Illinois, but yeah, I don't really think that we can fault blue states for gerrymandering to counteract red state gerrymandering. The Democratic Party tried to make all partisan gerrymandering illegal, and the Republicans filibustered it. So as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats can gerrymander out their fucking ass. I do not give a fuck, because they are the party that is trying to end partisan gerrymandering. And the Republican Party is the one that's trying to stop it. Is trying to keep it. Okay, Willie says, who do you support more, James Tallarico, Jasmine Crockett? I want to preface this by saying I think they're both great. If I was living in Texas, I would probably go Tallarico over Crockett. Not because I think there's anything wrong with Jasmine Crockett. I just think Tallarico maybe has a little bit more of a an of-the-time message, shall we say. Carbine says, do you think Trump was more worried about the fart he let out or his name in the files? I think he shat his pants, Carbine. Like, I think that's what the extemporaneous. I think that's what the reporting is suggesting. But I didn't watch the video. I don't really want to, what do you call it? I don't wish to put that on myself, Chance says, are you into watches at all? No, I don't really give a shit about watches. John Miller says, ES&S puts Denimus changes to their voting machine software and lost their T's in New York and Georgia. Changes to their voting machine. I'm not really sure what you're arguing there, John Miller. Can you clarify? Okay. Willie says, yeah, I think Tallarico would win more of the Republican or blue MAGA voters. Yeah, potentially. I don't know. I mean, he's a little bit more inclusive, I think, in his rhetoric than Jasmine Crockett. And I think I think that's what we need right now. Okay, Mia's Lovey Adventure says, those files are a lot worse than I ever thought they would be, and still not bad enough for some people. Isn't that interesting, Mia? All right. Woo! We are slowing down on comments. The Fixer Mike says, Jasmine Crockett is a force of nature. I'm so proud of her. Yeah, I think she's great too. MIK says, do you think Musk had anything to do with Trump winning in 2024? Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. He was doing illegal campaign contributions. He gave the Trump administration $250 billion by himself. Yes, 100%. He had a lot to do. I don't think that he necessarily did like any tech wizardry to steal votes, but he definitely engaged in illegal campaign finance operation in order to win Trump and Republicans that election. Fletch Lives Again says, thoughts on Trump suing for $10 billion. Trump has been doing this thing lately where he is suing the federal government and then he gets to decide to settle out of court. So he's basically just like taking our tax dollars and putting them directly in his pocket. That alone is an impeachable offense. That alone should be something that he is in jail for. That alone should be reason why nobody should ever vote for a Republican ever again. The Fixer Mike says, Trump even said Elon rigged it for me many times, maybe exaggerated, maybe true. Yeah, but Trump says a lot of stupid shit, so I don't really rate that whatsoever. Saint Monkey says golf. Yeah, him going golfing is stealing taxpayer dollars and putting it right in his pocket because he only golfs on his own courses, which means that Secret Service has to stay in those rooms. And reporting is saying that he's charging them extra. He's charging them more than people would normally be charged for those rooms. Okay, PJ Holohan says best kisser in the Republican Party. I mean, if it's ass kisser, I'll probably go Marco Rubio. Muzz King, Saint Monkey, Lady Lisa, Voodoo Child, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. What's up, Lady Lisa? John Miller says, had they updated their software, they would have to recertify, but they made 2 updates, 1, 2. Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to get at here, John Miller. Are you saying that the election was rigged in favor of Trump? Are you saying that the election in 2020 was not right? Like, what's going on? Sports and Politics says, is Trump the worst president ever? If he's not the worst president ever, he is definitely number 1, 2, or 3, and it's not even close. All right. Again, John Miller, you know what? This is John Miller. Ask a question, or you're out of here. Holds up half the sky says Andrew Jackson. Yeah, no, I still think that Trump is worse. Mika Korb says, do you believe I'm your opinion 100%? I don't know what you are. The Fixer Mike says, it's true that there was a non-procedural software voting machine update. They shrugged. Yeah, I mean, we saw that in the Rockland County case, but we still got to wait for that data to come out. Garbage Republican says, is Trump the most corrupt president ever? I don't know if he's the most corrupt president ever, but right now, because of things like cryptocurrency, he has the ease of accepting the most bribes than any other president in human history. So, like, by dollar amount and flagrancy, he is the most corrupt president of all time. And I personally believe that he is the most corrupt president of all time, but I'm not I'm not a historian. It's the Rocketeer says, put those Bezos bucks into the college fund for me. Who are you talking to? It's the Rocketeer. Big Rick says, Saudis gave him $500 million 4 days before his inauguration. I'm pretty sure that's true. Mika says, do you believe in your opinion 100%? Where I'm confident of it, yeah, but there are other times when I'm like, I don't know enough about that to speak on it. Mick says, what do you think they were trying in Fulton County with seizing the ballots? So it's a couple of different things. It's Trump still trying to prove that the 2020 election was stolen from him, even though it has been debunked time and time again. It is an intimidation tactic to let people know that we can get your information. We're going to be looking at who you're voting for. So maybe you'll be thrown in jail for having voted for Democrats in the past. It's a trial run for 2026 and 2028. They want practice seizing ballots so that they know what they look like and they can run those operations. It's a bunch of different things. They want to collect information on voters so that they can more thoroughly squash dissent, throw Democrats in jail, suppress the vote, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Terrence T says, I got a great question. Who's the best president ever and why? That I don't know, Terrence T. Sports and Politics, I think it's Ronald Reagan and then Trump, but you can switch either two. I mean, I put Trump way above Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan at least had the premature of being a responsible human being, Reagan went out there and said that immigration is good for the country. So it's like, at least we're not being as racist. We're not being openly racist during the Reagan administration. Sports and Politics says he ruined the economy. Totally agree. No arguments here. But one Democratic president was able to undo what Ronald Reagan did in Bill Clinton getting us to a budget surplus. Obviously, he didn't fix everything, but we were not in a deficit after the Clinton administration. I do not think that one president will be able to solve what Donald Trump has done. Triplet number 1 says, how many criminals did ICE really get? Very few. I think the number is something like 90% of the people that ICE are detaining and deporting have zero criminal record and have done nothing wrong. The Tree Guy says, were there actually evidence released that showed any guilt in the released Epstein files? I don't believe so. I think it's all just sketchy shit. Like, I think they've showed us sketchy shit. They're like, look at this person begging to go to Epstein's island and saying there's not going to be anybody there over the age of 25. Look at how many pictures of Donald Trump with a bunch of really young girls and stuff like that. So, yeah, still nothing definitive, still nothing proved in the court of law, but just more smoke to suggest that there 100% is fire. Gert Detert says, so you just say liberal POVs. Got it. No, I don't. I'm a progressive Democrat. But the things that I'm saying, you can Google and show that they are proven. Sports and Politics says, AOC or Josh Shapiro 28. I think they're both great. Truth Seeker says, Jared Bernstein, where do ICE agents have the legal right to wear a mask? I don't believe that it is illegal, except in the states where it has more recently been established that it's illegal. But I don't think that there was a previous legal precedent that said that they couldn't do that. I could be wrong about that. I'm not a lawyer. Tony Piano says, Epstein hated Trump and blamed him for working with the FDI. Maybe towards the end of his life, but they were really good friends for a long time. Okay, Sports and Politics says, my bad, I accidentally copied and pasted his comment. That's fine. Jago Vargas says, is Kristi Noem getting fired? I have no idea. It's not going to make a difference if she is. Single Dad says, why do you want people who are not citizens to vote? I don't, and they don't. It is not legal for people who are not citizens to vote, Single Dad. 1974 Pinto Waring, great to see you again. Public servants should not be allowed to conceal their identity. I agree with that. Tony Piano says, you lie so much, and you are blocked so much, so congratulations. Tony Piano, lounge singer extraordinaire, tickling the ivories, the way that some people tickle the clitorises of other people's mothers. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, Eric says, Clinton rode Reagan's policies to a surplus. You're wrong, LOL. It's a real stretch to say that, especially because we had 4 years of George H.W. Bush in between Reagan and Clinton. So, yeah, sounds like nonsense to me, Eric. Seth says, how can we get the Republicans out of Congress? By voting, Seth. We got to vote. We got to get everybody we know to vote. Do you know what voter participation is at its highest in recent history? 60% in America. That's the top. That is the most people that have voted in a presidential election since, I think, like the 1970s, maybe earlier than that. 60%. What does it look like when America votes 80%? What does it look like when America votes 90%? Let's get these fucking Republicans out of here, man. Let's convince everybody that knows that we know to vote. Delta Dawn says, will they prosecute? They won't, because if they do, they'd have to go after Dump, and they won't. Delta Dawn, I don't think that the Republican Party cares about sort of like treatment for like crimes. Like, they're fine with two people committing the exact same crime and only prosecuting the Democrats. So I don't really know if that's that doesn't really give me any hope necessarily. It's the Rocketeer says, oh, you didn't get the Prime sub notification. Oh, did you sub on Twitch? I'm so happy to hear that. It's the Rocketeer. No, I don't get any of those. I do not get any of those notifications. My live was just reported for misinformation that may cause moderate harm. That's interesting. I would love to know what exactly the fuck they are referring to, because I certainly have said exactly zero things that, substantiate that claim. So there you go. The Fixer Mike says, there literally no process for prosecution of a sitting president, only impeachment. I think it's bigger than that, the Fixer Mike. It's that there's an Office of Legal something, OLM memo or something like that, that says that you're not allowed to indict a sitting president. OLD, OLM, I forget what the abbreviation is. Office of Legal Counsel, OLC memo, something like that. Ms. Weaver, Muzzking, Delta Dawn, and Garbage Republican, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Morgan Ashley, I'm new here. Don't have any questions. Just saying happy Monday. Happy Morgan. Happy Morgan to you, Morgan. All right. Triska Fawn says probably reading that guy's cue. Right. Sports and Politics says I either want Shapiro or Airseed to run. I hate Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's fine. I don't think that he deserves your hate. I think both of those would be great options. What do you think about Bashir? Sports and Politics. Costa Rica Fresh Coffee Export says, why are Democrats evil, nasty thieves, and liars? They're not. Costa Rica Fresh Coffee Exports. If the next question that you ask is as clearly nasty as that one, then I'm going to block you. Okay, Fixer Mike says, Gavin Newsom is a little too slick and feels performative sometimes. Yeah, I don't know, but that's fine. Like, so many politicians are like that. Excuse me. Single Dad says he sent the fire aid money NGO instead of the victims. Single Dad. What is your vibe, Single Dad? Where are you? Single Dad. It's where yeah, okay. Yeah. You're completely full of it, Single Dad. All right. Milky says, why do all politicians lie, cheat, and steal? All politicians do not lie, cheat, and steal, Milky. I would encourage you to not say things like that going forward, because when you paint all politicians with the same brush, you are giving cover for the worst ones. If I steal $5 and the guy next to me steals $1 million, and people look at the two of us and they go, you guys both steal. Like, one guy's getting away with a lot more, don't you think? Mick says, who you think it can be a good candidate to represent Democrats for president? I think the Democrats have a big bench of excellent candidates. Personally, I love Chris Murphy, but 2028 is a long way away. We still have to do the work to win 2026. Saint Monkey says, so Newsom is like a politician. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Sports and Politics says, yeah, she would be a good candidate too. I think Gavin Newsom is the Trump version for Democrats. Completely disagree with that, Sports and Politics. Gavin Newsom has so much more substance and integrity than Donald Trump. I think that is a ridiculous connection that you are making there. Finn says, do you believe in any political conspiracies? Yeah. I think that the 2000 election was stolen from Al Gore. It all came down to Florida, and the governor of Florida was the brother of George W. Bush. But yeah, I don't believe in conspiracies so much so that I bring a gun to the basement of a pizza restaurant. I believe in them in the way that's if it were to come out for definitive evidence that these conspiracies are true, I would go, yeah, I thought so. Okay, scrolling down the bottom of the TikTok comments, Sports and Politics says, okay, maybe that was a little too far, but I just don't like Gavin Newsom. It's fine to not like Gavin Newsom. I don't like Gavin Newsom all that much either. But here's the thing about Gavin Newsom is he's fine. He's okay. People want to tell you that he's the devil. He's not. He's fine. There are so many other politicians who are way worse than Gavin Newsom. Okay, Josh Sarah says, Newsom has shown anti-trans and anti-homeless tendencies, so he's better than Trump. But still kind of not great. Yeah, again, I'm not going to argue with a lot of people's criticisms of Gavin Newsom, but I think that we need to recognize that he is also fine. That he is also okay. Sports and Politics says, I would still vote for Gavin over JD Vance, but I still don't like Gavin Newsom. That is fine. That is totally fine. Okay, Milky says, how do you feel about Zionist interests being so protected by American politicians? It's because of money. It is because AIPAC is an extremely well-funding lobbying organization, and the Republican Party and the right-wing justices on the Supreme Court have completely annihilated all of our campaign finance and lobbying regulations. So I don't have a problem. I don't have any more of a problem with AIPAC than I have with Heritage and Federalist. I think they are all equally awful and terrible. Okay, the Tree Guy says, can Trump ever be indicted after his presidency? Yes, the Tree Guy, but how well that happens depends entirely on us. Because we need to flood the zone with politicians and lawmakers who actually have some fucking integrity and will go after Donald Trump and his people. I am confident that Jack Smith can still put Trump in jail just for the things that he did in 2020, in 2024. No, in 2020. I was right the first time. And then there are certain things that are going to have to get undone, like in the long term, like the Supreme Court's immunity decision is going to be a real fucking pain in the ass. I think that it is going to be necessary to add seats or impeach Supreme Court justices if we want certain, what do you call it? If we want certain charges to be able to stick on Trump and his acolytes. Okay, Real Bendis says, I'm learning more about Josh Shapiro. Do you think he can win the nomination? Yeah, I think so. He's great. People in Pennsylvania love him. Okay, let's see here. Chill comments day. Lady Lisa says, I believe that Al Gore really won that election too. Yeah, you know. Let's see here. Gordon67 says, how can you broach the topic of Israel is bad to an American Zionist? I guess it would depend, Godon, what level the person that I'm talking to is. So there are some people who stand so hard for Israel that they will not accept the reality that the government of Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu and a bunch of right-wing psychopaths are doing a genocide against the people of Palestine. That they are doing to the people of Palestine what the reason why they are there in Israel, they are doing that to the people of Palestine. And Real Benda, I know that you don't agree with some of the hyperbole about comparing other things to the Holocaust. To that, I would just say I apologize, but also not everything has to be exactly like the Holocaust to be like the Holocaust. So yeah, you got to make sure, you got to figure out which kind of Zionist you are talking to, because I don't know if it's worth it. Somebody that I know knows people who are actively stealing people's homes in the West Bank. And I don't think that there's any argument that I could make that's going to change that person's mind. Like, that person is just so full of hate and selfishness. I do not think that my, well-reasoned arguments are going to register with them. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Sports and Politics says, I just don't like me. I just don't trust him. He's also not far enough left for me. Are you still talking about Newsom, Sports and Politics? I just don't like me. Sports and Politics. I think so, either A or C or him. Sports and Politics. I pray to God that Gavin is not the nominee for the Democrats, so I won't even be in that dilemma. Well, do the work, Sports and Politics. Do the work of winning somebody else the nomination besides Gavin Newsom. Let's see here. Sports and Politics. Let's see here. No tea, no shade, Sports and Politics. We all have bad days. Robert Castroy, great to see you again. Says, with current leadership saying they expect the government to open up by Wednesday, do you think the few no votes will hold it up? I don't really know what's going on inside those negotiations. I just hope and pray that the Democrats are able to get something substantive to rein in ICE. Otherwise, I say fucking keep the government closed. It's a big fucking deal what they're doing. Godon67 says, why is there net migration out of California? I don't believe that that's true anymore, actually. I think that California has had more people coming in than out, I think in the last 3 years, maybe? Delta Don, Carmine, Triska, Lady Lisa, and Momster Mash. That's very clever. Thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, everybody? That means it is Finger Hearts O'Clock. Finger Hearts O'Clock. Alrighty. Let's see here. Sports and Politics says, in 2028 will be my first election that I'm able to vote in. Oh, so you're not even 18 then, Sports and Politics. I'm so happy that you are this interested in politics at a young age. And I'm glad that you have your head on straight enough to recognize that sometimes you got to vote for someone you don't like so that you can keep a worse person from getting into office. Shork says, what do you think about Ro Khanna prior to the Island Files? I mean, I have always liked Ro Khanna. I cannot say that I was ever an expert in Ro Khanna. I just, when elections happen, you just hear like 1,000 voices left and right, and then you hear like, okay, I like that person kind of sucks, but I'll still vote for them. That's, blah, blah, blah. And I always liked Ro Khanna, but I couldn't tell you like more specifically what he has accomplished or what his platforms are. I just kind of like have a vague memory of remembering to like him. And it does seem like he has been, you know, at the forefront of this fight to release the Epstein files, which I'm like, dope. Yeah, man, fuck it, let's do it. Mick says, why you think we haven't heard much about Maduro's case lately? My guess is that it's, you know, the judiciary takes a really long time for things to come out. Like the Mangione case is still going on, you know, and that happened, feels like 25 years ago, but I'm sure it was less time than that. Italiana says, what has Melania done to deserve a documentary? What she has done is be in a position where it is a good mechanism to give Trump a bribe. It was a $50 million bribe to the Trump administration. Alrighty, let's see here. Sports and Politics says, I also feel like if enough people think their vote doesn't matter, that's how we lose elections. Yes, 100% Sports and Politics. You and I are speaking the same fucking language here, my guy. That is why I'm always fighting against this. Both sides are the same. Voting doesn't do anything. You know, don't vote, because if you vote, you're complicit in a corrupt system. We can never get true justice with the two parties, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, let's see what the world looks like when America votes. We already know what it looks like when America doesn't vote. That's the last 50, 60 years of this fucking country, where the most voter turnout we've had in recent history is 60% in the 2020 election. And every single other election, it's like 40%, 50%, midterms, primaries, special elections. It's like voter participation in this country is pathetic. So let's make it clear to people that their vote matters. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which is only possible because people voted for Democrats. And there are women today who are dead because of abortion bans that were only possible because people voted for Republicans. If voting didn't do anything, billionaires and the Republican Party would not be working so fucking hard to stop you from doing it. They would not be paying bot accounts to flood social media with bullshit narratives to try to get people to not vote if it really didn't do anything. Alrighty. Let's see here. Godon says, in 2024-25, California experienced a net loss of about 216,000 people due to domestic migration. That is from the California Department of Finance. Okay, Godon, I don't know if that's true. I don't know who you are. I don't know if the thing that you wrote is even what I would find if I went to the Department of Finance website. I just know that I remember hearing that I think that stat was inaccurate. So to everybody, including Godon, double check. Look into it. Real Benda says, what do you make of the criticism of Melania's accent? I mean, you know, there are so many times that we have to be the bigger people, where we're like, Trump makes fun of people for being fat and ugly, and yet he is one of the fattest and most disgusting human beings on the planet. But we can't make fun of him for that. We got to make fun of him for being a corrupt piece of shit, because otherwise we're body shaming and image shaming and shit like that. Are we going to make fun of Melania's accent just because she's complicit with, like, history's greatest monster? You know, and she was fucking gave us psychopath offspring, you know? No, we should make fun of her for wearing a jacket that says I really don't care, because it shows how these people don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. But, you know, sometimes it's fine. Sometimes if Jasmine Crockett wants to call the governor of Texas, Governor Hot Wheels, like, let's just not make a habit of it, you know? But, like, a couple of them are going to slip through the cracks. Like, can we have some fun? Can we enjoy our lives at least a little bit? Alrighty, let's see here. Lady Lisa says, hopefully more people will vote instead of staying home. That's exactly how Trump got elected. Completely agree with that. Lauren says, Brett Ratner, who directed and produced her movie, is in the E-Files. That is also accurate, Lauren. Sports and Politics is a felon and an immigrant is telling us to hate other immigrants and felons. How ironic. Completely agree with that. Sports and Politics. I'm so glad that you are paying attention to politics at such a young age. Irish Page says, yes, let's be mean. Let's not make that our whole fucking thing, but we can have a little piece of candy every now and again. We can have a little piece of candy every now and then. Alrighty. Saint Monkey says, ours win when defeatism wins. Yes, 100% accurate. Alrighty. Josh Sarrow says, sorrow, Governor Hot Wheels is a 10 out of 10 line. Yeah, I agree. But we can't be doing that because it's going to make people in wheelchairs feel bad, you know? And I say that sincerely. Like, I know I'm doing the jokey downer voice, but it really makes a difference. I personally think that if you get to a certain level of evil, we're allowed to make fun of all your physical disabilities and shit like that. But, you know, if a person in a wheelchair tells me that that hurts their feelings, then I'm going to feel really bad about that. S.E. Morgan says, why hasn't Trump been golfing? Has he not been golfing? That would be a shock to me if he has not been golfing. Rando454 says, did someone kind of whistleblow this batch of Epstein files? I don't know. I have no idea what the internal dynamics are, where they are delaying certain file releases and redacting certain file releases when that is against the law that they signed, that Trump signed into law, that they have to release everything unredacted, you know? So, yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what pressure is causing them to obey the law where in the past they have not. Chris Den says, can I call him Hot Wheels as a wheelchair user? Yeah, it's like the N-word, where if you're black, you could use the N-word, and if you're Jewish, you could say Jew. If you are in a wheelchair, you are allowed to call, what's his name, Governor Paxton, Governor Hot Wheels, 100%. Alrighty, excellent question. Let's not all go becoming disabled just so we can call him Governor Hot Wheels. All right, Lady Lisa says, do you believe the Sasha Riley story? I do, but it hasn't been proven yet. Like, it tracks for me. It makes sense. But we cannot claim to know definitively that it has happened yet. East Meets Wesley says, S.E. Morgan says, why did the DOJ release victims' names? I don't know. You know, I wonder. I think that the victims gave a press conference where they were basically saying, like, we don't care. We just want this information out there. I don't know if that's 100% of them. I don't know if those are the specific names that were released. I don't know if this was, you know, what do you call it? Incompetence on the part of, you know, the DOJ and the FBI. I'm not sure. Daniel D says, why don't the left call people and politicians on the right names disrespectfully? Why don't the left call people and politicians on the right names disrespectfully? You know, I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. And I should say, Daniel D, that some people on the left call people and politicians on the right names disrespectfully. You know, I cannot claim that we have a 100% success rate in being the bigger person in all, you know, scenarios. Ms. Weaver, Tink, Carmine, and Saint Monkey, thank you for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. But yeah, I think that in general, we want politics to be different than that. We don't want it just to be ad hominem attacks. I think Democrats are the party of marginalized communities, and calling people names like, you know, that make fun of them for being fat or ugly or disabled or with an accent or not great English or whatever, that, or calling out Lindsey Graham for, you know, hypothetically being a closeted person who goes by the name of, like, Lady L or something with his male escorts, that could be seen as derisive to those marginalized communities. And so we don't want to do that. We want to lift up those marginalized communities. Okay, Sophia, great to see you again. Opinion on some blue states raising taxes on ammunition and guns. I have zero problem with that whatsoever, Sophia. The Second Amendment does not protect your right to buy guns and ammo at a reasonable price. Just that you should be able to. Okay, Muzz King says not Lady L. I think that came out in reporting. Like, I didn't make that up. I think that came out in reporting. Okay, Josh Sarah says, would you ever shorten Finger Hearts to farts? I don't think so. I think then people would be looking for the fart emoji to give me a gift on here. Jeff Johnson says, why do only libertarians like capitalism? Lots of people like capitalism, not just libertarianism. Not just libertarians. Lady Lisa says, I heard that Lindsey Graham is in the Epstein files. I haven't seen any of that reporting, but I don't doubt that at all. Sports and Politics says, do you think Texas will go blue in 2028? I have no idea where all of the advantages that Democrats have gained in the narrative with all the shit that Trump is doing. There could potentially be other things that keep Democrats from winning in Texas, like things like gerrymandering, things like voter suppression tactics. The Trump administration and the Republican Party are wildly unpopular right now, And Democrats are winning elections not necessarily because the Democratic Party has a better brand, but just because I think people want to staunch the bleeding, potentially. They're just like anybody but what's going on here. So I think that we would have a more positive case for Texas going blue in 28 if we had politicians that people actually loved. Like if we had the kind of fervor that people have for politicians like Bernie Sanders or Mamdani running for president, I think we could potentially flip Texas. But we had Obama, and he wasn't able to get Texas in 8 or 12. So and he was like one of the most universally beloved politicians, especially in 8. Lady Lisa says Texas just elected a Democrat in one of the reddest areas. Yes, and I love that. But that is one special election, and it's different in the midterms, and it's different in 28. Yeah, I'm not going to take that to mean that I'm not doing the work. Sports and Politics says Obama is the greatest president of all time. I think he's a great president. I don't know if I'd say he's the greatest, but he was definitely a great president. Sports and Politics. Sophia says, by the way, I replied to your message. I agree with you that compromise is needed, even if neither side fully agrees. Oh, I can't wait to read your response, Sophia. Delta Don says, elaborate on the whistleblower tip locked in a safe story broke today. What is that tip, your opinion? Oh, I haven't read anything about that, so I could not tell you. Chris Den says, Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat is coming up. Need to get the word out for Sean Harris. I don't know who Sean Harris is. So I can't, but this guy, Chris 10 is saying Sean Harris is the guy, but I don't know who that is. So everybody go check out Sean Harris and then either vote for him or don't, depending on if you like him. Awesome Sauce says, did you see the FNAF stuff in the Epstein file? I have not. I don't know what that means. Saint Monkey says, it's safer to focus on Lindsey Graham being an alcoholic, though probably related to his closeted status. Marty D says, the right is very sensitive and thin-skinned. They were offended by Obama, who coddled the right. It's an interesting way of putting it, Marty T. I don't know if I would describe Obama as coddling the right. I think Obama was trying to go on the record as trying to be a bipartisan president. He ran as saying, there's no red America, there's no blue America, there's only the United States of America. And so for a long time, he was doing that job, maybe longer than he should have. I think he should have established it. He should just put it out there. I tried. They are being intransigent, either because I'm a Democrat or because I'm black. America, you decide. But I cannot get anything done with these people. And it is not because I'm not willing to compromise. It is not because I'm not reaching across the aisle. And Mitch McConnell even went out there and said that that's what everybody's doing. We're just saying no matter what. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Green Bay says Obama about 8 years longer than he should have. What a weird thing to say, Green Bay. What is your deal? I feel like I've seen you here before, Green Bay. Sports and Politics is the fact that I could have played a Fortnite game with FC's crazy. I wonder if he trafficked any people that way. Jason M says, what's your political ideology? I'm a progressive Democrat. Saint Monkey says, Obama knew how to play them for fools. I mean, in some situations, yes, but in other situations, no. S.E. Morgan says, Lindsey Graham and the Ladybugs. I don't know what that means. Sophia says, if the Second Amendment is a constant right, then don't strict gun laws, making it hard to own guns, a violation of that. I wouldn't argue that, Sophia. I definitely would not. The Supreme Court, in attempting to do the bidding of the Republican Party and the NRA, have been looking for any legal precedent they can find to suggest that any gun laws are unconstitutional. And I find that to be pretty shitty. That's definitely not calling balls and strikes. That's not being an impartial judge. It is what's the justification that we can use for this decision that we've already decided to make before we even listen to these fucking arguments. But even by that metric, I think that you would have a really hard time finding any kind of legal precedent for saying that taxing something is a violation of people's Second Amendment rights. S.E. Morgan says, it's shocking how the right switched policy on the Second Amendment. I mean, it's not the first time. The Black Panthers were the reason why we have gun laws in the first place, right? Sophia says, how difficult do you think it should be for someone to own a gun? I think it should be at least as difficult as it is to buy and drive a car. I think that you should have to take classes, get a license, get insurance, and then you can buy a car, buy a gun after that. S.E. Morgan says, Reagan to then California. Yes, I remember. Sports and Politics says, let Trump abolish the 2-term limit so Obama can count of retirement and destroy him. As much as I would love to watch, Obama kick Trump's ass on the world stage, I don't think that is in the cards. I don't think that we're going to be watching Trump actively campaigning against Obama. Here's the thing. I wouldn't put it past the Supreme Court, this right-leaning Supreme Court, and the right and the Republican Party being in charge of Congress, basically saying, like, Trump can run for a third term, but nobody else. S.C. Morgan says, I don't think Trump will be around in 2028. From your lips to God's ears. Wonderflife says, why not make gun safety classes mandatory in school? I mean, I would much rather have civics be mandatory in schools. Ray says, Texas folk, March 3rd, vote Jasmine Crockett. Help us spread the word. Ray is here with Team Jasmine Crockett, everybody. Don't forget to vote in the primary on March 3rd. Whether you want to vote for Crockett or Tallarico, make sure that you're voting in that primary. The Fixer Mike says, hunting rifles do not equal multiple casualty weapons. Restrict the AKs. I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, Fixer Mike. The Real Benda says, Trump has recently said he won't run in 2028. Well, he says a lot of things that end up not being true, Real Benda. S.E. Morgan says, gun safety when schools can't afford books. Yeah, that's how I feel also. I think that we have other priorities before we teach kids how to use guns correctly. Average Joe, great to see you again, says, what's your opinion on what's your position on the opinion that journalists need to be more direct or confrontational? Example, Senator Graham, why don't you admit that you're gay so you won't be blackmailed anymore? Ooh, that is a really good question, Average Joe, and you're gonna hate my answer. It's a little milquetoast. I think it depends on the situation. I think that question specifically, that reporter could face some legal issues for defamation and shit like that. It might be looked at as, denigrating the LGBTQ community. But yeah, I think that reporters 100% need to go harder. And I think that a lot of times they don't in order to preserve access. Like, if they're too hard on certain people, then they will lose sources that give them the information that makes it possible for them to do their jobs. But where legal issues are concerned and where, protecting your sources is concerned, I say absolutely fucking go hard. Do not let them get away with this bullshit. Wonderflife says, not affording books is a straw man argument with digital tech books / AI books should be free. I would not say the not affording books is a straw man argument, Wonderflife, because we have watched the Republican Party defund public education for a really long time. And it is 100% the case that our public schools are universally underfunded, except in like the richest of neighborhoods. So yeah, digital books, AI books. I mean, AI books is a whole other fucking issue because we don't know how accurate those books are going to be. Digital books, potentially, but I would be worried about screen time affecting those children's brains. There really is something special about physical books, but the short version is it is not a straw man to say that the Republican Party has been defunding public education to now it is an impediment for a lot of children to get a quality education. Righty, Wonderful says, none of my leftist friends put their kids in public schools. There is a put your money where your mouth is kind of argument where it's like, do you want to support these public schools? All right, then why aren't you putting your kids in public schools? But the thing is, like, if the Republican Party has defunded my public school to the point where I don't think my kids can get quality education there, am I really making that big of a difference by putting my kid in there? Or am I just hurting my kid's future? And that is a decision that every parent has to make. And I think it's going to be case specific. And I don't think that we should be yelling at people on the left for sending their kids to private schools. But yeah, let's all fucking unelect every Republican from president to dog catcher. Let's elect some politicians on the left who will make reinvesting in public education a priority up to the college level and perhaps further. Lady Lisa says public education system should be federally regulated so all kids get the same education. I think there's some pitfalls there. The Fixer Mike says the public school argument is more to do with wealth, not politics. I don't know. I see the cuts coming from one side. Sterling says we actually spend a ton per child, but they have allowed administration bloat to take it all by design, in my opinion. Oh, that's interesting, Sterling. You know, I haven't heard that. I would be interested in reading more about that if you have any sources you want to DM me. Sports and Politics says, or we just stop sending Israel money and we can have money for free healthcare, etc. I mean, I think we should stop sending Israel money for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which being that we could then use that money for domestic issues. But I should point out that even if the Republican Party were to vote to stop sending money to Israel, which, by the way, they are not, and more Democrats are than have ever before, they still would not use that money on our education. They still would not use that money to fix our roads. They still would not use that money for our public schools or our fire departments or our police stations. They would just put that money in the pockets of rich people and hope and pray that it trickles down one day, even though they know it's never fucking going to. Alrighty, Scarlett says, is Reagan responsible for a lot of wealth inequality? If so, what? Yes, I would say that Reagan is responsible for a lot of wealth inequality. He kind of made mainstream this supply side trickle down Laffer curve version of the economy and popularized it to where, you know, the Republican Party looked at his massive electoral wins in, I think it was 80 to 88. And they were like, sweet, this is our whole fucking policy now. And so then every subsequent Republican administration has cut taxes more for the wealthy than the one before. And so now the wealthy are paying less than they ever have in taxes, and the rest of us are fucked. Ruadri says, what do you think of the exile of CPO? I don't know what that is. Ruadri? Uberlar says, what's your take on why the generals haven't stepped in yet after witnessing Americans being offed? I think it's a tightrope walk where they are worried that if they get fired, they'll be replaced with somebody worse. I think that there are certain things that they are waiting for the ability to say no to. Certain illegal orders that they're waiting to say no to. I think the reason why we haven't invaded Greenland is because the military said we are not going to do that. All right. Let's see here. Andrea says, was Enoch Burke called after Enoch? I don't know what that is. Sophia says, but a driver's license isn't a right, it's a privilege. But unlike driving, owning guns is a right. I don't know where it says, Sophia, that having a license is something that you only need for things that are a privilege and not a right. I don't really think that the difference between having a driver, being able to drive a car, not being in the Constitution, and being able to own a gun being in the Constitution means that us regulating guns or making people get gun licenses or take gun safety classes or have gun insurance is a non-starter. I don't really see that. I see that as a, what's the expression? It's like a differentiation without a difference or something. But yeah, that means nothing to me. To me, I think about this logistically as opposed to theoretically, Sophia, where I'm like, there are a lot of guns in America. There's a lot of gun violence in America. Maybe we should try something to stop the gun violence. You know, we've tried not legislating gun laws. We've tried not having gun licenses and gun insurance. Maybe we could try that. I don't think making people jump through a couple of hoops is a violation of their Second Amendment right. And honestly, I think it's kind of shitty. I think that people who are like, you're making me do this to get a gun? It's like, yeah, I don't know. Wait a couple of days. Go to the fucking office, you know, where you have to submit your paperwork. Yeah, fax something somewhere. Like, I don't give a shit, you know? Everybody has paperwork that they gotta do. There's bureaucracy. There are you think I want to go to the DMV? I don't want to go but I'd go to the DMV. So just fucking go. Just do it, you know? Anyways. Sports and Politics says, one of the main problems of people's mindsets right now is saying it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. Sorry, this guy. Yeah, no problem, Sports and Politics. Yeah, I mean, I ascribe to that as well. And I think 100% people should be recognizing that the place that we are in right now, the country that we are living in right now, is the realization of that poem. That's like, first they came for the blanks, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a blank, and then they came for the blanks, and then I said nothing because I wasn't a blank, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. We are living in that poem right now. So let's all fucking do the fucking work, because it will come for us eventually, regardless. All right, we did about an hour 10 today, guys, which is pretty fun for y'all. The F1 Addict says, do you agree that a world with higher taxes for most people is a better world, especially on the top 1%? I mean, I think we need a progressive tax structure where rich people pay more and poor people pay less. But I also believe that if we did tax the rich at demonstrably higher rates, then they would also benefit from that world. It's not just the poor and the working class who would benefit from that world. It's also them. I think that's what you're asking, the F1 Addict. Did you see that movie, F1? F1 Addict? I'm curious what an F1 fan actually thinks about that movie. John Abbott says, if any amount of gun regulation is a violation of Second Amendment rights, then any and all attempts to regulate citizens' voting is also a constitutional violation of voting rights guaranteed in their later amendments. That is an interesting point, John Abbott. And I wonder what people on the Republican side of things would make of that argument. All right. User a bunch of numbers says, do you think the red states other than Texas will begin to vote blue? I think we're going to see popular sentiment moving a little bit more towards the Democrats as a reaction to how much they hate what Trump and the Republican Party are currently doing. It's not going to be that much, because the brains of the Democratic Party is also not that popular right now. And I worry that the Trump administration and their voter suppression tactics and sending the FBI to seize ballots and sending ICE to close down roads in Democratic areas near their polling locations is going to counteract any gains that the Democrats would have made in the midterms and the 28 elections. So we still have to do the work. We still have a lot of fucking work to do, everybody. Okay, let's see here. Sports and politics. The people who pull all the strings will come after you if you don't bring value. 100%. Sports and politics. Yes, they will come for you eventually. All right. I went a little long today, so let's do the outro, everybody. But get your final questions in for after the outro. Thank you, everybody. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know we're all struggling, but the mechanisms are there. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for absolutely free. And that helps me out a ton. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And special thanks to everybody who sent gifts in this live stream and all of my regular subscribers: Grimacus, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Dan Blackroyd, Lauren, the two Seans, and of course, it's the Rocketeer. If there was any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, or there are other things that you want to get into with me when I'm not streaming, you can hit me up. My DMs are open. I want to be a resource for you guys to be more informed and more involved in politics. And so if there's any way that I can do that for you, I want to do that for you. So drop me a line, send me a DM, email me through my website, join my Discord, use me and abuse me, use me until you use me up. Engage, ask me questions. You know, if you need nonprofits to go volunteer with or send your money to, like, I got the lock on that shit too, guys. So use me as a resource. Use me until you use me up. The Discord is also a great place for recommendations for books and podcasts and nonprofit organizations that desperately need your help. And just lastly, my heartfelt plea that everybody out there do the work, because it is up to us. It is up to us to stop this. It is up to us to fix this. We don't have to live like this. We can have a better country. We can live in a world where fucking multi-billionaires are not flying around on private jets, eating lobster and caviar 3 meals a day, while the rest of us are having a hard time finding a place to live or being able to afford health care or food or a college education for our kids. We don't have to worry. We don't have to live like this with the fucking stress of 1,000 suns weighing on our shoulders because we're so worried about making our next paycheck or being able to put food in our kids' mouths or being able to afford our fucking insulin. Like, This is a fucking nightmare, and we can fix it. We don't have to live like this. You know, there are versions of the government where I don't have to come on here 5 days a week and talk at you an hour and beg you to call your representatives. You know, I would love to drive a car where I don't have to call the tires every fucking 5 minutes, say, hey, do me a favor and don't fall off. Would you? I would fucking love that. So yeah, we don't have to live like this, guys. Let's do the work. Let's do the work of organizing, protesting, striking, boycotting. Let's make sure that everybody that we know is voting and voting for Democrats. Let's recruit other people for this fight also. If I can convince you to be a part of this fight, then that means that you and I are both out there talking to people. And then maybe those people are talking to people as well. We can phone tree our way into a better country if we do the work, guys. Alrighty. Philipapa says, do you like the mayor of New York City? Yes, I do. User a bunch of numbers says, what is the leftist answer for immigration enforcement? Should we do it? Excellent question, user 474. Let me get into that 1 second. Let's see here. Sports and Politics says, can I get a shout out? I'm trying to post political and sports, but I don't have an audience. Yeah, this guy, Sports and Politics, seems pretty cool. Everybody go give him a follow, check out his videos. So what is the left's answer for immigration enforcement? The left's answer is it should be done, but it should be smart. It should actually fix the problem, and it should be humane. What the Trump administration is doing is not fixing the problem, and it's barbaric, and it's illegal, and it is ruining people's lives. And the Democrats tried to do this during the Biden administration. Like, it's not like there's not a precedent for this. We've been caught trying. And then the Republican Party killed that bill because they wanted to run on immigration as an issue in 24. And as far as I'm concerned, that completely invalidates the Republican Party. If you are willing to keep a problem, or even make it worse just for your political benefit, I'm done with you. No legitimacy whatsoever. You are invalid as a political party. If I can't trust you to solve problems, even if it means you're going to lose elections. Yeah. Done and done. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Do the work. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to people to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. I took the weekend off. Had a great time with the missus. And now it's back to work on a Monday. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.